Easy, do it like that. All right, it looks like we are on the channel. We're recording now. Conscious Approach, new episode. What's going on, everybody out there? Thank you for tuning in. Thanks for watching the video. I certainly appreciate it. My name is JV Wins, joined as usual by my man Dogon SS. Saturday, May the 7th. So we're going to have a good time discussing some interesting topics trending throughout the week. I ran across a clip on my usual Content Factory WorldStar I think that this clip typifies some of or at least it typifies one aspect of why it seems to be trending in a strange direction when it comes to how to successfully navigate the world of relationships. We've obviously made a lot of videos and talked a lot about this particular subject matter in the past, but it's the gift that keeps on giving, right? Because we seem to routinely run across pieces of content that give us an opportunity to explore yet another aspect of why this situation seems to be becoming more and more tenuous. It seems by the day, at least. So we're going to go ahead and pull this up and we're going to run it. This particular clip, I'm not exactly sure the name of the platform. The credit goes to @Mr_J Hill. I think that's the guy in this clip's name. I'm not sure what the name of that particular podcast is, however, but still wanted to get at least that much credit attribution out there. And so there's these two women who are on this particular podcast talking about how they cannot consider dating or being in a relationship with a man who works. And that's pretty much the gist of it. They can't be with a guy who works. And so we'll play it and then we'll react to it once we're done watching the clip.
You already said you can't deal with a guy that got a job?
Do you have a job, Jay?
Yes.
Okay. Why can I deal with you? The reason why I can
She said it like it was like an option.
No, it's not an option. That's what I was gonna say. With respect to your girlfriend. That's not what
She's
I
not gonna take it personally.
Yeah,
You know
I
we
can't
working.
take anybody that got a job either. That's why I said I don't want nobody with a job. Because if we want to go to Jamaica to see your girl's family, you can't because you got a concept. But you can't tell them like, oh, I gotta go to Jamaica tomorrow. Like you gotta. No, but when it so you can just leave your job.
I mean,
anytime, like right, like you told us we had to push the time back because you didn't get off work till a certain time. Like that already is like a hassle.
Okay.
No, but
that's a red flag.
For me, no, it's not a red flag. But for me personally, because I know when a lot of people say, "Oh, I can't date a man with a job," a lot of people on the internet take it to offense. But me, Destiny, cannot date a man with a job. One, because I'm very spontaneous, and I need. Wait, Jay, before you get to leaning back and breaking the chair. What I'm saying is, and I also need a man to understand where I'm at in the moment that I'm at. Like, I probably will have a week where I work so much, and then I have a week where I don't work at all. You get what I'm saying? So as an entrepreneur, it's like it's very up and down, and I just want somebody to understand the mental state that I'm in. Sometimes I get really, really depressed because I always have to show up for people. So then I'll be like, I want a man to be there to comfort me during that moment. I just feel like so you want a maid too? I don't want a maid. I want a man.
All right. So there you have it. She talked about needing spontaneity, and apparently guys who work can't be spontaneous. She talked about how she has an up and down, inconsistent work schedule due to her being an entrepreneur, quote unquote. And so therefore, she needs a man who is able, and I'm paraphrasing, to be available to tend to some of her emotional needs when necessary during her down periods of work time, which don't happen on a consistent basis because of her entrepreneurial type lifestyle. And those were some of the points that she brought up. She also, the other girl talked about, spontaneous is like, oh, we want to be able to go to Jamaica. So that's where the whole money and resource angle comes in. They're coding it as spontaneity, but really what it's about is money. What did you think about what they had to say about that? They can't date men who work.
I get where they're coming from. I get where they're coming from, but it's just it's a surface logic. I don't think it's well thought out, and so I think that they would have to look a little bit deeper into their statements. I think they've dated guys that have had 9 to 5s before, and by dealing with those guys that have 9 to 5s, they feel like it's restrictive somehow, some way, and so due to that restriction, they just don't respect it. So, due to them not respecting it, they don't know how, which I don't feel like they should not respect it. So, the problem lies with them not respecting people who have a boss. So, when you're dealing with this type of spirit, I just really feel like they are in a space where they see the value of working for yourself, and for a person who chooses to be a paycheck slave, in their opinion, is somebody that is not cut from their cloth. So they want to hang around a guy who is an entrepreneur himself. So I think that's my initial take on it. I get their logic, but how she's articulating it makes it seem like she's very shallow. So she might be a shallow person who, but I can't tell. But from that statement, it seems quite not well thought out. So
Yeah, I tend to agree with that. I do think that it comes from a shallow perspective as well. So, like, I'm just confused. Like, okay, so first of all, the overarching thing for me is we've consumed a lot of content. We watch a lot of stuff. Whether it's being on social media, whether it's being on YouTube, whether it's just generally being on the internet. So there's a lot of content out there about women and men and relationships and whatnot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all of that content that we see, what are some of the things that are in common with a lot of the stuff that we see? At least I'll speak for myself. I won't speak for you. A lot of the content that I run across is usually how to fix and repair and make a better way for Black relationships. Now, across the board for everybody, it doesn't matter what your race or ethnicity is, across the board for everybody in the world today, in the modern world, relationships are kind of tricky and tough. So we acknowledge that. But based on what I've seen, it just kind of seems to me as though Black relationships seem to be in the worst position of all. And so knowing that based upon what my observations have been, when I see clips like this, it kind of just, and these were 2 Black females in this clip, it kind of further informs me on why we have kind of gone sideways. I just think that perspectives have just kind of gotten out of whack. Now, what I don't understand about this particular type of point of view is you talk about wanting to be, first of all, let me just say off the jump that in spirit, I agree with what she is saying, in that I am somebody who is a champion for compatibility. I believe in the notion of compatibility. So I do think that it is no coincidence that people in Hollywood end up being in relationships together. People in it's very common to see people who are in the same industry end up pairing up. It's because it's like you get one another and you live the same sort of lifestyle. You adhere to the same norms and customs and standards. And so there's a compatibility there that makes it make sense. And so if, in terms of her being an entrepreneur, again, I'm giving her credit for that label. I don't know who she is or what she does, but I'm just going to give her the benefit of the doubt because that's what she called herself. Yeah. But I don't know what she does. So I don't know what she means by entrepreneur. These women are these women who are on Instagram and OnlyFans, they call themselves entrepreneurs. But in my opinion, you're not an entrepreneur. You're just leveraging your physical appearance for financial gain. That doesn't make you an entrepreneur. You're not necessarily contributing anything to society. You're just benefiting off of the machine of these visual mediums. To me, in my opinion, I don't put that in the same bucket as true entrepreneurism. But that's just my opinion. Nevertheless, I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt for being an entrepreneur. If she is, in fact, an entrepreneur, then I understand what she's saying based upon my belief in the principle of compatibility. She lives a certain type of way. Therefore, it makes the most sense for her to pair with men who can understand and relate to that same sort of grind and lifestyle. So from that standpoint, I don't completely disagree with what she's saying. However, where I do kind of get lost in the shuffle is when she starts bringing in all of these qualifiers like spontaneity and emotional needs. Like, where did we get to the point where a man who works is not spontaneous and therefore cannot tend to your needs? That's where I'm drawing the distinction. Where did we get to a point in which we conflate working with no spontaneity? Because I know a lot of guys, and I put myself in this category, who do work and are far more spontaneous than a guy who is running around trying to sell t-shirts and CDs all day long. That guy is, by definition, an entrepreneur. He's not beholden to a check writer. He grinds and he makes his own money and he makes his own schedule, but he's broke. Mm-hmm. He's like a struggle rapper. So according to the logic of women like this, they'd rather be with a struggle rapper or a guy of that same ilk than to be with a guy who's maybe an engineer or an architect, somebody who makes very good money, who can afford to do things that she would like to do, who can afford to go on Jamaica, as they like to say. But there's just simply some planning that would be involved in making that happen, because you do have to, at least to a certain degree, respect the fact that you do have an institution that you are employed by. So, like, we've kind of gotten to this point, and I've seen a lot of this rhetoric coming from a lot of women these days, where we are conflating working with no spontaneity. Like, I remember, and I don't know where these conflations come from and why we leap to these absolute conclusions. I remember one of these topics that we did a while back. It may have been the April Mason thing. Mm-hmm. One of these topics that we did, and you know, there was the woman was talking about how if you want me to be the person who is tending to the household or to the kids, you have to be making all the money because I can't work. And it was somewhere, the point that I was trying to make was something along the lines of, when did I wasn't aware that tending to the house or tending to the maintenance of the relationship and the family, even though from a physical standpoint it is work, and I acknowledge that, when did that become sort of like the same as work, or the same as like earning money by working a job or something like that, and therefore you can't do it because I'm not going to do both. I'm not going to work a job. I'm not going to be an employee and be somebody who tends to the house and the family and the relationship. And I think the point that I was trying to make was, when did those two things become mutually inclusive? Like, I didn't know that we were conflating maintenance of a relationship and a marriage with working or lack thereof. And I kind of see the same thing going on here. Like, where did we decide as a society that if you work, you must therefore inherently not be spontaneous? To me, there's no logic there. And that's when I kind of draw my own conclusion that this kind of comes from a shallow place, that it's a bit of a shallow perspective. Because you can't tell me that you'd rather be with the struggle rapper or with the guy who is spotty or hit or miss when it comes to making his money, but he's an entrepreneur, over some guy who has a career and he's done quite well for himself and can essentially call his own shots. He just happens to be employed by an institution, and he can afford the lifestyle that you think that you deserve, but he just so happens to be a quote unquote employee. You can't convince me that that doesn't make sense, but based upon this logic, it kind of seems like that's what they're suggesting. And just, you know, for me, moreover, what makes this dangerous and what makes me nervous about this, what scares me, is that this type of ideology is becoming more commonplace, where you have a lot of females who, to use your word, disrespect the notion of being someone who works. So if you work and you put on your bootstraps and you have a career and you've made something of yourself, now that is no longer a level of success that is tantamount to being able to seek a gainful relationship with an attractive woman. And I fundamentally don't agree with that. But I do think that this type of thought process is becoming more common. I just think that it kind of comes from a shallow place. I think that if she replaces entrepreneur with rich man, I think that is really, honestly, I think that is more so the emotion. I think that that's really the thought that she is eliciting here. When she's talking about she can't be with a guy who works, like, so you can't be with an A&R record executive, you can't be with a Wall Street person, you can't be with a guy who works in the tech industry or cybersecurity. Like, these are guys who make top 10% money, but by the letter of the law, they are employees. They do work. So I think what she was trying to get at, and I understand at this point I'm kind of putting words in her mouth, but again, I'm trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. So I think what she was really saying was, I can't be with a guy who has not become someone who is, if he's not rich already, on his way to being rich, but has ample money and resources so that he can afford me the type of lifestyle that I want to have. But she coded it as entrepreneur because, especially for us as Black people, entrepreneur is what is most commonly made synonymous with a man who has money and resources. I don't think it's the same way with other races of people. I think that that's something that is kind of sort of unique unto us as a subgroup, is this whole thing about entrepreneurism. So like, with Black men, Black people in general, those who have money and resources, and entrepreneurism has kind of become synonymous when really they're not mutually inclusive. But I think that that's what she was getting at. I think she was making a play about the money and resources, about being with a rich man. But she didn't say that. She just said, you got to be an entrepreneur and you can't be somebody who works, because in her mind, a guy who works must not be a guy who can provide me with said lifestyle, must not be a guy who has the money and resources that I'm looking for. That's kind of what I think was going on in her mind. But when she processes it, she processes it as a guy who works versus a guy who's an entrepreneur. Either way, I still think that it's a scary mentality to have. I find it to be frightening because, like I said before, you have a lot of guys out here who, and I use the term, who are involuntarily celibate, who are out here seeking meaningful relationships with women whom they find attractive, but are simply being disqualified from the opportunity to do so, because you have a lot of females nowadays who harbor this mentality, who kind of look at a guy who works as less than, no, you're not good enough for me because you work. When in actuality, there are degrees and there's levels of separation. And a fruitful career might not be defined as entrepreneurism per se, but it's nevertheless well better off than what you would define as entrepreneurs with some other people, some other guys who are out here in the streets struggling. And so I don't really know where the rubber meets the road. I don't know where the end point is, but I do think that this is kind of becoming more pervasive. And not to be all doom and gloom, but, in my opinion, I just find it concerning.
Well, you bring up a good point that just because somebody's an entrepreneur doesn't mean they have it. So, and then I was in the comment section because I saw this on TikTok too, and the comment section on TikTok, people was basically saying like, I'm an entrepreneur. I can't just pick up and leave whenever the hell I want.
Right.
It's because I'm a boss. Like
right.
I have things to do. I can't just pick up and leave.
Right.
So that's a fallacy too.
Right.
Again, it makes you question what kind of entrepreneurship she's talking about.
Yeah.
And because if you're really a business person, you know who's like running an operation, where it's like an operation, like you have to be tending to that all the time. And if you do take a trip, it's more or less planned.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, let me give my job 2 weeks to know. Is that hard? Like, let me get my job 2 weeks. Is that a problem?
That's too
No.
that's apparently that's too
That's too long.
unreasonable.
Yeah, it's too long. That's not
Yeah.
spontaneous enough. We need to leave now.
Yeah.
Now? Yeah, like now. It's ridiculous. And that's fairy tale stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know where they've seen this happen in real life. I don't know where they're getting all of this stuff from, but it's fairy tale.
Right.
Man, I don't know if it was in those Zane books or something. I don't know where they're getting this.
Right. But it's so true. Like, even a person who's an entrepreneur, if you're tending to something that you're building, you're tending to that. You can't just pick up and leave that. Like, you're working it. You're working at it. Like, even and I was talking to my sister about this yesterday. And not that she agrees with this, she doesn't, but we were having a conversation. She knows women who think like this, of course. She's younger than me. And it's just like, everybody who's successful has habits, and they develop those habits. It's a part of it. No one's out here just being loosey-goosey, not sticking to certain habits and routines, even when you're an entrepreneur, to be successful. Everybody has their habits and routines. Now, in your mind, you might not believe that that's working a schedule, but it's the same thing, essentially. Like, these guys, people who run businesses, people who are entrepreneurs, they have habits and routines that they stick to, and they follow those because it's work for them. It's how they've gotten to where they are. So yeah, you're right. Like, you can't, even an entrepreneur is like not just gonna, let's just go get on a plane right now and go. But see, I'm telling you, like, I think in the minds of people like this, it's one of the toxic traits of the mentality of Black people. We are like, Black success still to this day is equated to like entertainers and professional athletes. And so I think in her mind, that's what she's thinking about. I think she's thinking about being with an entertainer or being with a pro athlete, who, by the way, you must be in the off season, because during the season, athletes ain't going to be able to jump and hop and go wherever you want them to go. But I think in her mind, she's thinking about rappers and entertainers and these types of people. And she's coding it as entrepreneurism. But that's what I think she's thinking about, because in her mind, that's what Black success is. A Black successful man is a man who must be doing things in those types of spaces. And therefore, those are the guys who can be able to do those types of things. Mm-hmm. I think she spends a lot of time on her TikTok and her Instagram, and that's where the conjuring of the fairy tale comes from. It's these false perspectives that aren't even really real, but because she's gotten to a point where she lives her life through the prism of these various mediums, it has become her reality. And so she projects it through her rhetoric whenever she speaks publicly. But it really doesn't make sense, and it's entirely impractical. The dangerous part about it, however, is the fact that you do have a lot of impressionable women who might be leaning towards thinking this way. Their beliefs can be reinforced when they see that. And so now they can say to themselves, see, I'm not crazy for feeling like this. She thinks this way too. And now you have a lot of them walking around out here emulating this.
Yeah.
And then and it's like, once they get to a point where they realize that it is indeed a fallacy, now they're 35 and 40, and now they do want to get with a guy who works. But the guys who work, that's not a fair trade for them. A lot of these guys who work, who might still be out here single, they're saying you gave your best years to ridiculousness. Now you want me to accept what essentially are the last remnants of whatever it is that you have left, in terms of being someone who I would have gone for had you been in your prime. So, it's this full circle type thing. And it's just crazy to kind of actually hear it spoken out loud.
Yeah. Well, so here's the thing. So I had a professor. He basically said that he hated rap music, of course. And so, what rap music became. Yeah. And so he basically was saying that they just promote irresponsibility.
Yeah.
Just promote playing all day long. And everything's a game. Everything's play. No responsibility, like, at all. And he said, what do you think you guys are going to do when you listen to that all day? It's play. No responsibilities. And so when you listen to these R&B, whatever you want to call these songs, these heartbreak songs, whatever these people listen to nowadays, You know, it's yeah, man. It's all telling people to. It's not your fault. There's no accountability in that music. Everything's like his fault. His fault. He did this. He did that. And for the guys, all of the music is talking about, you know, f these females.
Mhm.
We don't care about them. We don't love them. We just f them and we pass them to our friends, and we're doing all of this, yeah, all of this
Right.
stuff.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what do
Yeah.
you think these guys are doing? Listen,
Right.
see, the thing is, so I have to realize I'm in a different bubble. So then, when I'm talking about how women perceive men, I'm talking from my bubble and my homeboys, and we
Mhm.
all in the same bubble basically, where we don't partake in certain shenanigans.
Right.
But for the most part, you know, if we always talk about the masses of females who get caught up in the shenanigans, these ladies are caught up in it. The reciprocal of that is men caught up in the madness, listening to these songs, preaching about irresponsibility and not
Mhm.
even loving women at all.
Mhm.
And so when we talk about music that actually creates women as antagonists, how do you think guys are going out there and treating? So, like in return, we have this thing where the hot girl, summer girls are rapping, and they're talking about finessing dudes because
Mhm.
why not? You know, you guys are being so hostile towards us, so why not make hostile music towards y'all? And so now what we have is a tit for tat thing going on, but we don't own none of the record labels.
Yeah.
We don't own any of the records, radio stations, and so these things are being pumped into our feeds by major social media networks,
Mhm.
and so people are seeing this on the constant, and they're just reenacting it. Now, where these women are getting this rhetoric from, again, I'm not too sure. We've theorized on many things before, but it's still a thing where they're all seem to be reading from the same playbook. It's
Yeah.
it's amazing. And so when this young lady here talking about entrepreneurship and she just wants somebody to, but then at the end she said that she doesn't want a partner. She doesn't want a partner. She wants a man. Like, what the hell does that even mean?
Yeah. She said, "No, I don't want a maid. I want a man."
Oh, she don't want a maid. She
That's
wants.
what. Yeah. That was what she said. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But see, even then, so no, a mate, because she was saying she wants somebody. So
Oh,
then,
okay.
so then she said, "Oh, you want a mate?" Then she was like, "No, I don't want a mate. I want a man." Like, what the
Right.
hell does that even mean?
I don't even. I don't know. I don't know.
So it's just like, nah, like you, that sounds delusional and crazy.
Yeah.
So for, but again, here's the thing, man. People think that just because you have an LLC and you're running your own business and stuff like that, and you're doing your thing. But just because you're doing that, you're a complete human. And just because you're doing that and other people aren't, that you have things figured out that other people don't.
Mhm.
And that is a fallacy as well. And so she's speaking from an immature place, her homegirl as well. You know, basically low key sharting on the man because he had to reschedule their meeting because he had to actually work. And she's speaking as if that was unattractive. Again, that is delusional. If they do want a man that's going to be out here providing all and paying for all of this stuff, then what do you think he's going to want in return? What do you think? What do you think you think he has to be loyal? He's paying not to be.
Yeah.
So why does he have to be loyal to you? Why does he have to give you anything? Why do I even have to hear you cry? See,
Yeah.
that's the part where this girl here, which one is this? This one here. She's confused because she said that she wants somebody there that's understanding. That's
Mhm.
why the girl said, "Well, you want a mate."
Yeah.
Because if you want somebody that's there that's understanding, you want somebody to listen to your bullshit. And if you want somebody to listen to your bullshit, he's not paying for everything.
Mhm.
If he is paying for everything, he's not going to want to hear that.
He's not.
Yeah, I'm not here for that. You're here for a service. So I'm here to pay for that service. And
Yeah. Yeah.
once I'm done with the service, you're not getting paid anymore.
Yeah.
And that's just the end of the exchange. So yeah, I can slide on whoever I want because why? I'm paying for this. So it's such a ridiculous notion because they're putting so much emphasis and power on money that once you put so much emphasis and power on money and you're in a situation where he has all the money. Oh, I'm my own entrepreneur. I make my own money. That's fine. So, but the thing is, you're putting so much weight on the fact that he makes so much. What do you think he does? He puts a lot of weight on that too. He feels as though he's got a lot of power because he's got a lot of money. And so he's going to flex and he's going to exercise that on wherever he wants to and however he wants to. You're not going to be able to control that, man. So at that point, you're not going to be able to have a sustainable relationship at all.
Yeah.
So for her, so that's why I'm saying her logic doesn't sound well thought out. She didn't trace all the breadcrumbs to where it can eventually lead.
Yeah.
So she's just talking out of reaction because she's used to dating guys who worked at a department store, who worked over there. And hey, man, I can't get off ever. Not even on.
Right.
So she's talking about those guys, which again speaks to where she's at. If you were actually dealing with real guys who had real jobs, as if you were speaking about, this actually like salary and making money, she wouldn't be disrespecting it like that.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So again, she's speaking from her experience, she's letting me know which level on the totem pole she's at, and it's low on the vibrational scale. So she can speak that way if she wants, but it sounds misguided. So if there's any other women that's out there, it's like, yes, girl, yes, and you sitting there co-signing it, then again, and looking at this as a role model type of thing, I would ask you to please reevaluate.
For real.
to genuinely reevaluate, because this is the mentality that will have you alone your entire life. Oh no, you'll have guys in rotation and none of them will love you.
Exactly.
So you can make your choice right now, actually.
Yeah.
That's how
I agree. And they'll be the same ones who will say that it was all the men's fault.
Exactly.
And they will also be the people who, like, these are the women who complain because the guy cheated on them. Mm-hmm. And it's like, well, you are the engineer of your own misfortune because you place such a premium on a specific profile of a guy, and you guys are all doing the same thing. And that specific profile only accounts for about 0.1% of the population. So if 0.1% of the population has the options to be with all the women, fidelity is something that you can throw out the window. It's just not an expectation that you can have. As a matter of fact, I would argue that you're being unreasonable for maintaining that expectation, because in the real world, that doesn't make sense. It simply doesn't. And I do think that there is merit to what you're saying. I think. But see, that's what's so important about being able to articulate yourself appropriately. And we, I made this point when we talked about Cam Newton and the way that he said what he said and how everybody came at him. Mm-hmm. We knew what he was saying, but because he didn't express it in the most effective way, he got a whole lot of smoke. And it's just like, I'm trying to give this chick the benefit of the doubt. For all I know, she can just be another one of these shallow women who just think crazy, delusional things. But if she's not, and I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt, there are degrees of separation between laborers and, minimum wage and hourly wage and that kind of work. And then there are career paths and career-oriented people like myself. Mm-hmm. I can essentially make whatever schedule I want. And I've paid the cost to be that quote-unquote boss. And what she's doing is lumping it all into the same group. And I think that that's kind of an irresponsible rhetoric to spew out there. But I think a lot of them are kind of just thinking along these lines and not understanding those degrees of separation. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just going to result in them being by themselves forever. Mm-hmm. Until, like I said, they'll wise up eventually. But by the time they do, it's going to be slim pickings. And they're going to open themselves up to a wealth of disappointment in their future, and they'll have no one to blame but themselves, even though they will find a way to blame men for it. Mm-hmm. But that's just pretty much what it is. I just am sad and feel sorry for the fact that this type of thing is just being so readily replicated. It is what it is, but we'll see more of it for sure. Pretty much.
It's only getting worse.
Yeah.
It's only getting worse.
Yeah. But we'll go ahead and move on from there. Next topic we're going to talk about Kevin Samuels. Rest in peace. Kevin Samuels passed away. This is not going to be about him passing, but rather it's going to be our reactions to some of the things that people have been saying in light of his passing. Mm-hmm. So, obviously people have been opining over the last 48 hours, giving their 2 cents in terms of how they feel about him in the wake of his death. There have been a lot of people offering up varying viewpoints, but what I'm saying that I kind of find unfortunate is you have a lot of people. I won't go so far as to say they're celebrating his death, because that's just kind of morbid and repugnant to even think that you're celebrating another person's death, unless that person's death, unless we all know the difference, right? We know that line of demarcation. I don't think Kevin Samuels is the type of individual who strikes me as someone whose death would be celebrated. But there have been people who are commenting in light of his death and talking about how much they didn't appreciate the type of work that he did. So you got a bunch of people saying a lot of stuff out here. Twitter's been crazy. You got one female, and mind you, this chick's name on Twitter is God Tier Hoochie. That's her name. I'm not making that up. It says God Tier Hoochie, and she tweeted, Kevin Dead Samuels made a career out of mocking black women and having a circle jerk with other sad, pathetic, fatherless, desperate men, and y'all want me to check notes, mourn his death? Nah. And this is a female. And then you have a lot of these, caping guys out here, these Captain Save-A-Hoes, who are also commenting in similar fashion. This is a guy named Ernest Owens. I don't know who this guy is, but apparently he's a reputable journalist. He's a blue check mark on Twitter, so he is verified. So there's that. And he said Kevin Samuels has made a career off of shamelessly disgracing black women for profit. He emboldened the most toxic individuals to project tired and harmful narratives about black women. Dead or alive, what a disgraceful life to live. That's all I've got for that misogynist. So, we're running a gamut here, right? We got men and women commenting in similar fashion. A lot of chatter. And, I find it unfortunate because I'm not going to sit here and act as though I've agreed with everything that Kevin Samuels said. But what I do think that he mostly stood for was evaluating outcomes based upon your expectations. This was one of the main tenets that he used to go by whenever he would, have his shows and he brought these women on. He would be like, what is it that you want? And they would answer his question. And then they would say, okay, well, if you want that, let's look at what your input is, because your input is what is going to determine your results. And if your input that you're currently engaging in isn't going to get you the results that you want, we are going to have to reevaluate your expectations. Now, he wouldn't express it elegantly like that. A lot of times he was terse and he was blunt and convicted. But I think a lot of people, unfortunately, because we live in social justice weirdo world, a lot of people would get turned off because he was a man who was not afraid to speak with conviction. And so being someone who had a tone in the manner that he did and spoke with conviction, people would just get mad because of his tone instead of assessing some of the things that he was actually saying. And so, if you're one of these people out here who are commenting like this on behalf, in light of Kevin Samuels passing away, like, the only question that I have to you is, was his work invalid? You might think that he was playing upon tropes and victimizing black women and so on and so forth. But the fact remains that a lot of these dynamics were actually taking place in our culture and in our society. You did have women who were exhibiting toxic characteristics. He wasn't making these things up. We saw a lot of it playing out on his show. Women would come on there and answer his questions honestly, and in their honesty, they would reveal themselves as maintaining toxic mentalities. So all he would do was respond in kind in the way that he knew how to do it, which was to be direct and speak with conviction. But you got a lot of people who are just too afraid to be held accountable. And just the aura of accountability is something that people by and large just want to stay away from, especially when it's a man who is not afraid to not bend the knee to modern feminism and to this social justice rhetoric that's going on out here. And so, like, you had all of these people who I don't think had a problem with any of his actual logic. I just think that what they had a problem with was his tone. And to that, I say, who cares about what his tone was? Is what he was saying true? Is what he was saying actual things happening in the world around us? Mm-hmm. For the most part, the answer is yes. Some things might have been embellished, but I think for the most part, when it came to his interaction with the people that he brought on there, which is what the meat of his work and his persona on YouTube and Instagram was, like, these things were valid. They were happening. He wasn't making this stuff up. Women were responding unelicited. It's not like he was coercing them into these responses. They were saying these things, and it's endemic of how a lot of people think. See the previous topic that we just did. So it disappoints me to see people taking the opportunity to respond in this fashion, in the way that he did. It just kind of strikes me as sour grapes, especially men who respond the way this Ernest Owens guy did. It's like, bro, no one is out here trying to wholly denigrate Black women. We're just trying to speak truth into existence. And I think that he was a believer in that, and that was what was sort of behind I think that was a guiding light behind what it was that he did. And so again, I'm not trying to, I'm not trying to champion everything that he used to say, but to come on here and talk about how, I just get tired of this whole disrespecting Black women, demonizing Black women thing. No one's doing that, but we are at a point where people need to be held accountable for their dysfunctional behavior. And Kevin Samuels was someone who did that. Right or wrong, fair or unfair, if you didn't appreciate his tone, who gives a shit? What he was saying had some merit and validity. And, it's just annoying. I just don't like to see that kind of stuff, because now what we're doing is making the conversation about his delivery, and we're taking away from what is actually happening out here in these streets and what can we do about it.
Well, the people that don't like what he was saying don't think what he's saying is accurate. And that's the problem. They think what he's saying is inaccurate.
Right.
And there's a woman on YouTube right now, probably live right now, just bashing men. There's probably a large YouTuber right now that's a female or male that bashes men. And a lot of the stuff that they say, I might be on the spectrum of that, but that doesn't make it me.
Yeah.
So everything that they say, every slanderous word that they have to say about men, I don't identify with that because I know who I am. Mm-hmm. So therefore, that platform is ridiculous to me. So I won't give it my energy. So for those who are so upset, about what he was saying, I had my things too. Like, I didn't always agree with everything he said and every angle he had, and but at the same time, it was just like, hey man, a lot of these things do need to be said, and so a lot of guys need to hear it. But what ended up happening was, at least in my opinion, is your word, bad faith actors, mm-hmm. right? Where there's a lot of people on the stream, hundreds of thousands at times. And so not everybody that was watching the stream is because there's some guys that really take what he says as gospel and run out to just bash women over the head with it, because those guys are misogynistic.
Yeah, right.
And then so the bad faith actors from his program comes out, and then they start saying things in the streets. I hear them on other people's lives. I mean, just absolutely just taking masculinity the wrong way. Mm-hmm. And it's just like, hey, bro, just because you're masculine don't mean you have to talk to a woman like that.
Right.
So she's, at the end of the day, bro, we're still humans, bro. You just have a role to play, and that's not part of the role. But, so you'll have those guys, but those guys were going to do that anyway. Mm-hmm. And they just found an area where there was somebody that was actually giving you the science on why you should be more misogynistic if you're already a misogynist. So with great power comes great responsibility. And a lot of the things that he was saying was very insightful and very powerful stuff. And guys that know how to handle it used it and applied it the appropriate way. The women that heard it and got the message used it and applied it the appropriate way. For the guys that are just, out of pocket and just want some new game on how to control a woman and stuff like that, they went out in bad faith, acted it, and then started going out here and basically, creating a negative connotation towards content like his.
Yeah.
And then you'll see also other programs out there where, they're doing this bro thing too much. Honestly, if it gets any more bro, I don't even, are you even heterosexual anymore? This is getting so bro in here.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a spectrum. So teach their own. But my whole thing is that I feel like the bad faith actors are the ones that go out there and make a bad name for content like this.
In everywhere, yeah. In all things, yeah. That's how it always works.
Yeah, because the programs that I've seen from him where, the women are being extra and he's straightening them out. To me they were funny and they made sense because I've heard women like that talk. And to hear somebody straighten them out like that, I got a giggle out of it because they need to hear it somewhere. Apparently, they've never heard it before. That, hey, wake up, you're delusional. And that thought process is why you're single this long, type of stuff. Yeah. And so I think that there was people out there, they got the message. And for those out there that were actually, because I've seen it too, man, mocking his death, ha, ha, ha. I saw images where, apparently leaked images of the girl he may have spent the night with. But then I saw another leak one. So people just leaking things.
Yeah.
Making stuff up. Yeah. But one of the girls that people was leaking, she was thick, bro. She was, and then it's not that I believed it or whatever. It's just that somebody made a video about that, talking about Samuel's always talking about these small girls, and look at this girl, she big, she this, she that, and it's like, so you don't even.
It's not even. We're not even addressing any of the work at all. We're just.
It's not. That's exactly. So similar to the last segment that we had.
Yeah.
There's lack of information.
Yeah.
And these people are just speaking without even taking a second thought about what they're about to say. And so when they're just shooting from the hip like that, of course they say these, ridiculous statements. That's all I can say about that, man. It's like, what are you talking about? Mm-hmm. And so a lot of he woke up a lot of people, and so he pissed off a lot of people. But at the end of the day, man, I still feel as though, listen, when these energy sets come out and people start to gravitate towards them for whatever reason, the reason is that there was a void, and there was a void that a lot of people were experiencing. Somebody filled that void, that spoke the language that everybody can understand, that experienced that. And then all of a sudden they blow up. There'll be somebody that just does memes, they just troll people all day on YouTube. And it's like, how did this get so many views? There's a constituency of people that really want to see somebody do stuff like that. Yeah. This guy's he's doing a whole new, brand new form of trolling, but they needed a new troll.
Yeah.
So the same thing goes with this here. There was clearly a space where guys were starting to realize that, hey, man, every woman I'm dating, they're starting to say the same thing. I'm falling into the same patterns. I'm changing myself. But the higher I go, I'll meet the women on the next tier, and they're doing the same thing. Yeah. So it's like, what's going on here? And then now that we're hearing, that, okay, so guys before couldn't really figure out how a woman thinks, and granted, no one really will, but you can damn sure triangulate it and figure out where they're coming from. And what guys have been doing in the manosphere is triangulating the logic of a woman, so we can therefore use our masculinity in the appropriate way to make sure that there's no more combativeness within our community. And so if used the right way, the information that he provided will be useful. But like I said, man, there's bad faith actors and everything. And so people will look at him as Jesus Christ himself. They'll go around with the book of misogyny in their hand, and they'll be sitting there, Samuel's chapter 1 verse, and it's like, Samuel's, bro, like, let it go, man. But they're going to be those Samuelites out there. Trust and believe. And to me, I would say those guys are the bad faith actors. You know, the loudest ones.
Yes.
You know, the one that says I'm a baller at the basketball court. Really, bro? And it's just like, oh, you got all this money, right? But why are you talking about it? You know. So the same thing goes with all these guys. It's like, yeah, I'm super this, I'm super that, and yeah, I'm a straight woman right here. You know, I'm carrying Samuel's torch. You're gonna see all of that trash. And when all of that trash is going on, they're going. The thing is, man, men need to get balanced too, bro. So there's two sides of the spectrum. There's the side of the OnlyFans side that, you know, we've talked about before, and then there's the guys on the side that've taken the red pill, but then they've overdosed on it. You know, and you're only supposed to take one of these daily, sir. And you're popping these like they're goddamn M&Ms. Yeah. So now all of a sudden you're walking around eyes red from the red pill. Now everything is disdain and disgust. Yeah. And for whatever reason, I don't think you'll ever find a good woman, apparently. Yeah. And the way that they speak. So, you know, there has to be a balance. Like I always say, man, you know, not too high, too low. So just keep it somewhere in the middle, gather the information and apply it in a tangible, realistic way. Which may sound maybe easier said than done.
Yeah, at this point it is. It's just like the bad faith actors, the vocal minority of these people, like the loudest, they're always going to essentially become the representatives for the work unto which, you know, whoever it is that we're talking about. So and we see this all the time, and we see this everywhere. Like Harvey Weinstein and Kevin Spacey essentially became the lens through which to view all of Hollywood and how all of the entertainment industry is, you know, toxically masculine. When really those were two guys who were just bad faith actors. Those were two guys who exhibited depraved behavior. You know, so like it just kind of sucks when the whole bad faith actor thing becomes like a mainstay. Mm-hmm. And I do think that that's what happened. I think you bring up a good point. I think that you have a lot of and that's the thing about it is you have, so there are like there are the guys who I call involuntarily celibate, and then there are the guys who are legit incels. Right. So like guys who I call involuntarily celibate, I described them in the previous topic. These are guys who are reasonable, well-adjusted. Their mental health is in a, you know, in a well enough state, and they're just trying to navigate the situation and figure it out as best they can. Mm-hmm. But they by no means don't blame women for all of their misfortune. They don't think women are the root of all evil. They don't think women are the problem. They're just trying to understand it better. They're just trying to figure out how can I comprehend this in a better way so that I can best position myself for success. And then you have like legit incels who think that their success or lack thereof when it comes to dating or relationships is due to women. They blame women for the fact that they can't make any headway. Mm-hmm. And they think that women are the problem. Mm-hmm. And I think those are the guys, and we all, like, for both involuntarily celibate men as well as incels, watch Kevin Samuels' videos. But it's the incels who pose the greatest threat because they're just essentially using Kevin Samuels as a pathway to go out into the world and exact their dysfunctionality. Exactly. And to sort of it allows them to legitimize how, you know, it allows them to legitimize their toxicity. And so they can go out in the real world and behave that way, and they can justify it based upon the grounds of Kevin Samuels. The unfortunate part is that ends up getting let back onto the feet of an individual like Samuels, where now he's being held responsible for this. And it's like, it's not really his fault. It's an unintended consequence. Like, I'm not going to you know, bad faith actors, people who exhibit depraved behavior, should not be made to, like, the people to whom they sort of gather the art from should not be made responsible for that. And this has been going on for generations. Like, I remember back when the Columbine shooting happened in the 90s, they tried to say that was Eminem and Marilyn Manson's fault because those guys apparently listened to those guys' music. And it's like, you're going to blame the musician. These are things that are actually happening in our world and in our society. So better yet, instead of blaming Kevin Samuels, what we need to be doing is asking the deeper, more existential question: why is this situation happening like this? Why do we have so many people who are confused? Why are so many guys coming up unlucky and seeking out content creators on YouTube for answers on how to do better with relationships? Why are so many women constantly talking about being in relationships with men who cheat? Are all men cheaters, or is there some aspect of their decision-making behavior that is contributing to the fact that they always wind up in dysfunctional situations with guys who cheat on them? Like, that's the question that we got to ask. And to your point, Kevin Samuels was just someone who filled the void to help people figure out those answers. And I think bad faith actors combined with his blunt and convicted delivery made people try to blame him for the problem instead of assessing the root of the problems.
Exactly.
And it's like, you know, so now that he's passed away, you want to get on the internet and talk about how we're better off because he denigrated women, when really what we need to talk about is, let's address why women are exhibiting certain types of behavior that one would want to denigrate if you believe in the notion of denigration. And that's pretty much what it's all about. But you know, it is what it is, man. We see it all the time. Kevin Samuels, unfortunately, at this moment, is being used as a conduit for people to sidestep the real issues and to just attack the messenger. Right? Like, this is just classic. This is classic attacking the messenger stuff. And it's pretty disgusting, but it's also where we are in our world. This is normal. Like, this is SOPs. These are standard operating procedures at this point. This is how we do things.
Well, I'm saying, and to your point, that's what I'm saying. Like, Samuels basically gave the bad faith actors ammunition because he was just giving ammunition out. And so he gave the guys that were already having guns.
They were already on the fringe, yeah.
Already on the fringe with guns, and he gave them ammunition, and then so they just went out and started doing stuff with their ammunition the wrong way. And so, but the question is, like, where did they get this? Where did they get this desire to kill like this? Once they got the gun, like, where is this? Where's the origins of this?
Right.
And all of this stuff starts from, you know, lack of structure, family structure, lack of knowing how to be a man. Like the stuff you said before with the incel stuff. Hey, man, getting off the games.
Yeah.
Hey, get out of the house, bro. That's what the girls are. You know, you gotta get out there in order to
get off the OnlyFans.
Get off the OnlyFans, or get off the free pages if you don't pay. Like, you gotta get off of that stuff. And you got to. And so there's no way you're incel if you're not doing that too much.
Right.
So incels, low key, you have a porn addiction. It's by law. I don't know how else you're living your life. So that means you have a porn problem. That means you got to get away from that and the games and get out in the world. But that's a tall order, right?
Yeah.
So that's a tall order to ask people when that's the main emphasis and the main driver of all sources of entertainment at this point. It's either video games, metaverse, or whatever you want to call it. People are going to be gaming all day long. And then once you do that aspect, or they're not leaving the house then. And then even if they do leave the house, they're going to go to a social where they're going to all VR together. I'm telling you. And this is the madness I'm saying. Where basically social media and the internet has done a beautiful thing in being able to share and connect with people around the world. But at the same time, with all of this sharing and connecting, people don't know how to share and connect in real life.
It is. It is one of the most in my lifetime. It is one of the most profound ironies that I've ever seen in the history. Like I don't think I've ever witnessed anything more inherently contradictory, in my opinion. Is these things were supposed to connect people, and all it's done is made people more insular.
Mhm.
Like that's really all that it's. You can say what you want, because you know you got a lot of people out here who will call somebody like me, "Oh, you always complain about social media." You can say what you want, and that's fine. I don't mind if you want to come at me about in that way, whatever. I don't care. But the thing about it is, it's made people more insular, and
Mhm.
you can't convince me that as human civilization, you can't convince me that we are better off growing up with social atrophy, being devoid of the means to maintain healthy social existences in person. Like, you can't convince me that that's a better thing. Like,
Right.
you're not going to convince me of that. It's one of the greatest ironies of my lifetime.
And not, I totally agree. And so for these people to the social, like you said, the social atrophy, basically they just go out and everybody's an introvert.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when we were
Yes.
growing up, bro, it was a 50-50 split.
Yeah.
Everybody's an introvert now. Nobody wants to do anything with people anymore. And to
Right.
me, that's concerning.
Yeah.
I think that's more nurture over nature in that sense.
Yeah.
I really feel like that's a product of the social environment that everybody is socially freaking awkward at this point. And so, especially with the younger generation, where basically where they grew up and they're being socialized. So how do you learn your social cues? How do you know what's cool, right? How do you know what to do, whatever? And so, if you grew up and 50 Shades of Grey was the hot shit, you know what I'm saying? And you 11, 12 years old at the time, and that's hot shit, and it's like everybody's talking about it. You're gonna think BDSM is normal.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody with that thing in, and they're like 22, 23 years old, and they do that,
Yeah.
and they think that's normal. They said, "Listen, y'all don't do that," and I said, "No, no, I don't do that." There was a couple other people in the room who was like, "No, we don't do that.
Yeah.
Like that's not normal."
Yeah.
And so what's been normalized right now is the thing that basically creates more bad faith actors.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's less and less people who are actually taking a step back and evaluating whatever the hell they're about to do or say. And then there's just people that are just reacting off of learned behavior.
Yeah.
And the lack of social interactions. Man, when I went off to college, I grew up with brothers. I grew up in a big house. I had friends in high school. But when I went to college, it was a whole nother experience because, first of all, I was living with y'all, right? So I'm living with people that's not family. And then I'm doing and saying stuff that's not cool.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, hey, y'all like, hey, bro, like, that's you can't do that. Like, don't do that. And I'm like, oh, what? I don't know. Because that's how we did it in our house.
Yeah.
It was functional in our house. But then once I started to hang around other people, I was like, oh, what happens in my house isn't what happened in everybody else's. And I didn't know I picked up this little weird quirky thing here, but let me fix that.
Yeah.
And I had feedback from people that's like, hey, man, don't do that. Oh, that's not cool. And I listened. And then I learned how to not be a social, rub people the wrong way, be socially abrasive.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but if you don't go out and intermingle, the only time that you talk is on live when y'all playing a game, then there's a different type of interaction when you meet somebody in person, where you have to respect somebody in person. So you can talk all trash all day. You can just hang up on that person or do whatever. There's this extra edge of being anonymous that being online doesn't require you to be yourself. So when people are in person and it's time to actually interact, you can actually get that immediate feedback on, hey, man, that's not cool. You disrespected me right here. And it's like, oh, man, I had no idea. If this disrespected my friend, I know this would definitely disrespect the stranger.
Mm-hmm.
So my whole thing is now I have socially learned to not do that. But if you sit in your dungeon all day, playing Dungeons and Dragons all day, then at that point, yeah, you're not going to learn the social cues. And so at that point, yeah, you're going to be frustrated when you do try to shoot your shot finally. And then the girl goes, "Are you kidding me? You shot it over the backboard."
Yeah.
And then she was like, "You got to at least put it in the field of play." And then so of course he goes, "All these girls got attitudes." And it's like, bro, let me see the highlight. Let me see the highlight package.
Right.
If your highlight package is turnovers, it's looking like, I ain't gonna say no names. You just throwing the ball out of bounds. You shooting bricks. You throwing it. It's hitting the shot clock. Boy, you need to tighten up.
Yeah.
Don't blame her for not wanting to put you in the game.
Yeah.
So guys really need to learn. But that's what makes it easier, right? So if I can't really hoop in real life, let me go play the simulation and go play a video game.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on right now. So, hopefully, man, it's catching more people. There's still balanced cats out there. We're not talking about, the majority of dudes, there's still dudes out there that's holding it down. But, for those that's inselling it and for those bad faith actors, I can definitely point my finger as that being as a root cause, Yeah.
Yeah. And then everybody in turn responding to that. So like these tweets that are going around and all of these people talking bad on Kevin Samuels, like they're responding to the bad faith culture around Kevin Samuels, and they're using him as the conduit to do it.
Exactly.
And it sucks because people are more and more by the passing day, people are just losing the ability to maintain the proper perspective. And it's easier to just go on there and blanketly trash a person or an individual than to address the nuance and address what's actually going on. It's easier to just go at the individual who's the messenger. So, it's just, that's what's going on here. It's like, I don't like it. And it's everybody. The women are doing it, but I halfway expect that, especially the females who drink this Kool-Aid. But you got a lot of these guys out here who are just kind of repeating that, they're regurgitating the same sort of nonsense. And it's like, bro, you're calling him a misogynist. Is what he's saying things that actually are going on for real? Yes or no? But if you ask an individual like him that question, I'm pretty sure he'll Kyrie Irving his way around the question and answer it in a way that he thinks is brilliant, but really it doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Mm-hmm.
So, it is what it is, man. But yeah, I just thought we'd speak on that because, in a roundabout way, we kind of got to a particular way to look at it, an angle, which is the bad faith part of it. I do think that that's valid, and I didn't initially think about that. And to a large degree, I do think that is what's going on, is people are responding to the individuals on the fringe who kind of, ride with him as their, to use your word, Jesus. He's like their Messiah. But you have a whole swath of reasonable people who understand right from wrong and exhibit good judgment, who get the difference, but you ignore those people and you pay attention to the small percentage who are insane, and you attach the insane to his whole aura.
Exactly.
And, whatever. It is what it is. It's unfortunate. I was sad to hear that he passed away, but by no means are we going to, I don't think that it's okay to, in light of his passing, try to delegitimize his work, because I think that that's taking it too far. Again, not saying that you're supposed, I didn't agree with everything that he said. Furthermore, you shouldn't agree with everything a person says, because that would be a cult. And you're not supposed to do that. That's something you're supposed to stay away from, is a cult. And so this isn't a cult. This isn't the cult of Kevin Samuels. Agree with some stuff, disagree with other things. But to completely delegitimize everything that he did is just irresponsible.
Agreed.
Because it just goes towards trying to sweep what's going on in the world under the rug. And these things are actually happening.
Right.
But yeah, man, that'll do it for the day, man. That was good stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I always like to say, man, if you're watching this video on the YouTube channel, go ahead and hit that like button. Surely appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel as well, so that you can get the notification whenever new content comes onto the channel. You can follow Conscious Approach on the Instagram at ConApproach, ConApproach. And you can also follow we also post the videos onto the Facebook page that's made up for the channel as well. So if you happen to be watching this video there, hit that like button, hit the share button. Certainly appreciate that. Always share this video wherever you see it. You can catch me on Instagram at JVWins, JVWINS. Certainly appreciate the support, and as always, continue to support logical content.
Yes, sir. And the name is Dogon SS. All right. You can find me on Instagram at Dogon_SS or at YouTube at Dogon SS. You can find me on any social media platform for the most part. All right. Just type in Dogon_SS. You should find your boy. Just go ahead and follow me. Most likely I'll follow back. All right. So, yeah, guys, just keep it calm, keep it cool, keep it chill, keep it playing, man. Don't allow those around you to get you out of your zone, because there was some bad faith actors out there, because not everybody was being disrespectful about Samuel's passing. We were talking about the bad faith actors.
Yeah.
So for those bad faith actors, there will always be those people. And so long as you can identify them, then you won't find yourself getting out of pocket, because now you know that is, like you said, the vocal minority.
Yes.
And they do not speak for everybody.
Yeah.
So there's no need to get out of pocket and upset for yourself if you know that just the loud ignorant are speaking. So
exactly. A rule I understood that many years ago when I started to see how social media works. Because I've been getting it. And so you just got to understand how to not allow the exceptions to dictate your behavior and your attitudes. Like, just understand where the exceptions are, and just know that the majority of people are reasonable, and just let that keep you on your square. Don't let the exceptions get you off your square.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, until next time, man, certainly appreciate it. We'll be seeing you on the flip side. Conscious Approach, another good episode in the books. We out of here. We'll see you later.